Welcome to Here's What I Learned, a podcast for building a hustle-free, wildly successful coaching business. I'm your host, Jackie Hayes, launch strategist and certified online business manager with an obsession for superheroes and a thorough understanding of chicken math. Join my guests and I as we explore the ins and outs of building a feminist coaching business that embraces both mindset and strategy. Now on to this week's episode. Okay, welcome to this episode of Here's What I Learned. Today I have with me Laura Matteson of Illustrative. Laura, can you introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura, and I'm an artist and a mom and a visual translator. And I help online business owners who are creative and also think visually to get their ideas out so they can share them with the world.
And Laura, I like to start all my episodes with a rapid fire question. It is actually a very long question, but the answer is intended to be rapid fire. So here is the situation. You are going to be left on a deserted island, anywhere in the world that you choose, for 2 weeks, all by yourself, with no cell phone reception or internet access. What 3 things would you take with you?
Well, I would need people, so I don't know if that counts. But if I could bring people, I would bring my 3 favorite people. But if we're talking about things, I would probably bring Women Who Run with Wolves. I love that book. It has so many stories in it. And I love, I'd probably bring a swimsuit and a pan, like a cast iron pan. I think that's what I would do.
It reminds me a little bit of their Survivor. One of the first tools that they get is their cast iron pot, so that
you could do so much with that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's security and food.
And I love every time I ask this question, everybody seems to default to wherever I'm being dropped is going to be warm.
Yeah. I don't think I'd last long on a deserted, frozen island. I would need too much.
Yeah, exactly. So today I'd like to talk a little bit about this concept of visual translator. And let's start off with defining some terms that I see you often use, and that is visual thinker and visual learner. Can you tell us what those 2 things are? Are they different, 2 separate things, the same thing? What are they?
Yeah, so I use a few of these terms interchangeably, and each term kind of fits inside of itself like a little nesting doll. So visual learners are a lot of us. Actually, everyone benefits from a little bit of visual learning. And so that just means that you need to see it done in front of you, or you need to see a picture of it or an example of it, and then go try it out. And you'll be able to kind of get it from seeing somebody do it. Sometimes people need a combination of other things with it. And visual thinker are people who, when they are thinking, they're thinking in pictures. They think in metaphor. They're kind of creating a visual story in their head, and then they have to translate that into words. And as you get older, it happens faster. So people might lose track of that they do that. And that's less people, like 30%.
I have an experience of, I'm a visual thinker. I have a wide variety of a movie going on in my head at all times, very detail oriented as I am in general. And it surprised me one time talking with a friend of mine. We were talking about visual meditations, and she said, they're useless for me because I can't create the pictures in my head. And I thought, what? What do you mean you can't create pictures in your head? I could tell you the exact shade of red of an apple in my head right now. So it's shocking to me that there are people that don't have those pictures going on in their head at all times.
Yeah. And you know what's funny about that is that, so I think of myself as a kaleidoscopic thinker, which is a visual thinker who has the movie, but they're not in control of the movie. So it's like floating around and you're just like there for the ride to see what comes up. And visual meditations they're hard for me until I labeled myself, because I think labels are helpful for taking care of yourself, just like clothing labels. We don't use them to decide which clothing's good or bad. We use them to take care of our clothing. So I use labels to help people understand themselves. And once I realized that I could do visual meditations, but trying to visualize what they said, it like I could not get it to happen. Like something totally opposite would pop in. So it's funny because even there's a brand of visual thinkers who can't even do that. But then obviously hyperlinear are gonna not really, they'll be the ones to say it's useless because the ones who are visual thinkers want it to happen. They're trying to make it happen. It's not happening.
I think that's interesting. And I'd like to go back to the kaleidoscope thinker here in a bit because I did your little quiz that you have
Mhm.
and I came up with that and it was not shocking to me whatsoever. And yes, when I do visual meditations, like it's just like the starting point for me. And then I just
Mhm.
kind of ignore it from there because I'm like, no, I'm going at a different pace than you are. Or you say I'm supposed to be in a meadow, but my brain says I need to be in the woods. So we're
Mhm.
just going to go with what you're trying to achieve, not the exact details.
Yeah, and that's so healthy.
Can you talk a little bit more about kaleidoscopic thinking and what actually that is and how somebody could find out if that's what they are?
Yeah, it's only used in a few circles right now because it's not technically a scientific term. It's my replacement for whatever ADHD is if you don't want to go for medical diagnosis, but it's not only 80 people with ADHD. It's like a variety of people who think in this moving form. So they might think of themselves as an artist and that gets them by in life because they're like, it fits with the, often disorganized, having trouble prioritizing, having trouble sticking one thing in their brain. So they're like, I'm a creative, I'm an artist, I'm a kaleidoscopic thinker. I'm like, I don't care what label you use as long as you're thinking of it in a way that helps you parent your brain and take care of your brain the way you need to. And I use the word kaleidoscopic brain because I had an ADHD coach I was late diagnosed ADHD about 3 years ago. And when I started that journey, I had a coach who noticed that I kept talking about my brain being weird and bad, and those thoughts are ugly and stuff like that. So she challenged me to come up with new words. So I sat there and wrote like, okay, what are all the things and every time I would close my eyes at night, I kind of see a kaleidoscope and also random things like dancing puppies and stuff. Who even knows? But now I just enjoy it. I close my eyes at night. I'm like, oh, this is how my brain works. And I found myself to be so much more relaxed. And so using that term was relaxing for me. So I use it as an invitation for people to find a word that they love to use for the way that they think.
I want to go back to when you were talking about labels because I loved how you described that because I don't like to be labeled by others, but I am one of those people that will take every self-assessment test ever known. So if one comes up, if it's in Cosmo or if it's scientifically proven, it doesn't matter. I'm going to take it because I
Right.
feel like I have learned so much about myself by taking those assessments.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is an understanding that like I'm not necessarily quote unquote broken, that there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
necessarily wrong with me, that my brain may just be wired differently, that something is different about me than the person next to me, that the world may be set up for certain individuals that are not like me. So, can we
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that? I know it's not visual stuff, but I think it's an important conversation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think everything can be visual even while we're talking to each other because you'll notice that visual thinkers just do that automatically. So it's funny because I spend a lot of time talking to linear thinkers and people who are more on the linear side of visual thinking because it's more a spectrum. It's not like our side and their side. It's all different kinds of ways of being visual and linear. Those just help us kind of understand ourselves, like you were saying. And we'll just automatically talk in visuals. So that was a little aside. But I think that labels are important when we're talking about making change and growth and taking care of ourselves, like I was saying with the clothing earlier. And I do find that when I talk to my clients and everybody who's like in my DMs and stuff, they're always saying as a ENFP or as a D on the desk or whatever, like they all know all of their letters and numbers and signs and where they are in the planets and all of these things because we love a lot of us because our thoughts are always moving, which means that they're blending. So if you think of a kaleidoscope, you're creating new ideas in your head all the time. So you're always thinking bigger picture than just the details because we don't often hold those details unless it's something we're very interested in which case we can see all of the details and come up with creative solutions, which I think is awesome about visual and especially kaleidoscopic thinkers. And so being able to, I think that's why we're interested in it, because we're big picture thinkers. So we're always thinking about where we fit in that big picture and identifying ourselves as a character, because of that storytelling piece as well. Whereas a lot of people who are hyperlinear thinkers or more mathematically minded or system minded, and I mean system minded in terms of wanting to follow a path that's already been made. Whereas a lot of those of us who are kaleidoscopic thinkers and visual thinkers, we might have areas where we lean that way based on what we've learned when we were kids, or that like something where we feel uncomfortable. But in general, we like to kind of make a new way and kind of find the boundaries and figure out what can be done. And I think that those complement each other so well. There's people, we need to be able to have someone who can follow into that path and do the tasks, and we can make a new path, and then vice versa when it's something that doesn't relate to us. But yeah, I think that totally makes sense that we would love labels for ourselves. And we also like to put it on other people who don't like them. I have found we're like, you need to find out this about yourself. It will save your life. But they don't care what character they are. They're like, I'm myself. I'm just going to do my thing. I'm very fortunate to be married to a hyper linear partner. And so I get a lot of good input on things that are quote unquote, not everybody thinks this way, which is really fun. I learn a lot from that, and then I go research it. And that's what goes into a lot of my blog posts.
My partner could care less about self-assessments. He's like, I am who I am, whatever. And I'm like, but I need you to take all of them so that I know who you are. So I know how to relate to you. So you don't need to know the results. Just send them to me so I understand you better, because you are
Yeah.
outside my zone of comfort. So
Right. I just got a book from the library called Designology, and you take this little test to figure out your home design, and it's only 3 questions. So I was like, this is not going to be accurate, but it was so accurate. I was like, this is exactly how I want my house to be. So I was just like casually asking my husband the questions over breakfast. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing. I just need to know how to set up your room. And I think that comes from us also, like a lot of kaleidoscopic thinkers, especially the ones who are diagnosed with ADHD, which I think diagnoses for science, like in the world of medicine, is helpful for you if it's helpful for you. And if you don't need it, don't do it. I did it because I'm a parent, so I wanted to know what kind of diagnoses I had so I could educate my kids. But a lot of us who have ADHD or really fast moving kaleidoscopic thinking is what I think ADHD is. It's like moving so fast, there's no way you are going to catch it. And also you can jump to, like, you can see the end result way before somebody else can, which is cool. But often people don't understand us because we'll like look at the caterpillar and look at that beautiful butterfly. And they're like, that's not a butterfly, it's a caterpillar. But you're like already on to the next thing. And so we tend to also want to take quizzes and learn about other people, because that will help us understand them, because we've already moved so far ahead. We're like, okay, this will help me back up. This will help me check in for those social cues and some of those things as well. And I know there's autistic thinkers who think in shapes and patterns, and they don't always recognize the facial and social cues as well. So they might enjoy those quizzes to get that information. Because there's all different types of autistic people, but on the creative autistic side, where they're creating a lot of new things, they also tend to enjoy that.
I know that one of the things that you help your clients with is vision mapping. Can you explain what vision mapping is and how somebody can use it or do their own vision mapping?
Yeah. So vision mapping is literally taking a vision in your head, because it's definitely designed for visionaries. So these are people who have a lot of ideas or a lot floating up in their head. And if you ever just have that feeling, I just need to get all of these ideas out of my head and out in front of me so I can see what's going on. That's what that is. So we take that basic brain dumping idea and we add graphic facilitation to it, which is just taking visual notes during a meeting. It was originated in the 70s to help meetings go smoother and help everyone be able to participate and see and remember what everyone was saying during a meeting. So it takes that and it puts that with the brain dumping. So we visually put it down in with color coding and icons and stuff. So people who love like color coding their highlighters in their planner and color coded bins for organizing are going to love the vision mapping because it is, yes, that is what is designed for everything segmented, and you can then play with it. Sometimes they'll just print that out and we write the action items on it and they'll hang it up on their wall. Pretty much everybody prints it and puts it somewhere. And then sometimes we add an activity to it where we'll cut out pieces of it and play with it and kind of plan out something for like your marketing journey or your opt-in, which I usually call an invitation because the people I work with don't like opt-ins and funnels. And so we just feel like it's too strict because we like to be invited and we like things to feel inclusive. And so vision mapping is a way of taking those ideas and either seeing what they look like, organizing them, or just transcribing them so that you can remember them later and you can pass them on to people and help you explain things. And it's just a good stopping point to check where you are in the journey. Kind of if you stopped on a hike and you took a quick sketch of the landmarks around you, so that you have that reference is what vision mapping is.
I love that idea of a way to get everything out of your head and down onto paper, because I don't know about you, and I think this is something that we probably have in common because I think we've talked about it before, but almost being overwhelmed with all the ideas that are constantly bombarding us on our brain because, as you said, thinking fast. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like I feel so often like it's gone before I even have had a chance to like grasp it, hold on to it, and be like, wait a minute, I want to put you down somewhere. And I feel
Right.
like oftentimes, the notes section or whatever in my phone, that's a way to do it. But being able to just grab a picture or have a picture of it would be quicker or faster or an easier way for me to like encompass the whole idea.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. And to answer your second part of being able to do that for yourself, there's a few different ways. It depends on what kind of visual thinker you are. Some people like to put them on sticky notes and just have them up, and they can kind of, there's a way to be able to color code it that way. And you can also stick them in groups on the wall so you can kind of remember, like, this is a thought I had about groceries and this is a thought I had about business. So they're not all in one note, which definitely happens. My notes are so disorganized. And then there's also like getting the right planner that has notes sections. So you can take notes and then set a time at the end of the day to categorize those into different spots. I found that being able to write on paper is really helpful for visual thinkers to just get it out. I know Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way, she suggests doing artist brain dumps every morning. So that's kind of a way. Then you can highlight the ideas you want to put in your agenda later. And vision mapping it's just being able to brain dump. It's just three parts. You brain dump your ideas, however that feels best. And then you organize your ideas. So if you see a common pattern, once you've gotten them out, and then you create a visual reminder for yourself of what you want to do there. So if you've collected a lot of grocery things, like write those out on a Post-it note and put it on the door so that on your way out, you remember. And then if you've come up with a lot of business things, like collect those and put them where you see your business things. And if you want to put a picture with them, you can do that. So sometimes I'll take screenshots of things to help me remember. Also, I just have to remember to put them in the folder for later. And so it's not just a screenshot in my phone full of photos and gets lost forever. So that is the challenge. But that's why it's nice to have someone help you with it, because then it is all organized. But when you're doing it yourself, you just pick a time to organize it, and then you'll stick to it.
How can somebody use vision mapping or include more visuals into their business? Say they are a coach and with like client onboarding, how could they include more visuals, and why is it a benefit to their business as well as their clients to do so?
So I'll start with the second part. It's a benefit to include visuals because everyone benefits from visuals. So you're not going to add a visual and then it didn't provide any clarity for anyone. Like most people are visual learners. And so having it in there isn't going to hurt anything. And also it helps people. There's a number of different things. It depends on the visual. So some visuals will help act as like a push pin in your brain to like hold that idea there. So if it's kind of like when they tell you to do a mind palace to remember things and you have a room for each thing, if a coach puts a visual calendar. And then they have certain pictures on certain days, or like a certain icon for different types of workshops, or a certain, GIF for group meeting times, then they're going to be able to remember where that was on the calendar. So not necessarily the date, but like, oh, it was somewhere in the middle of October, and then they'll be able to go find it. And it just helps them kind of organize those ideas. So sometimes it works as an organizer. Sometimes it works as a de-stressor and like lessens your anxiety. So if you have a visual of the timeline, or you have a picture of your face, or you have pictures of the people in the group who are going to be in the group with you, so you can see them ahead of time, or pictures of the books you need to get if it's a book club. So like any kind of thing where you can show what it looks like, it will help reduce that anxiety of like, oh, okay, this is how long it is, like this is how spread apart the meetings are. This is what the book looks like, so I can go find it. Those kind of things are helpful. And so when you're onboarding, I would say most of the people that I work with, they're pretty intuitive and they want to take care of their clients as humans. So in that process of sales and everything, where you're really listening to them and listening to their needs, you can listen for things that pop up where they are. Some things to listen for would be if they use a lot of metaphors. So if they're explaining what their problem is and they're like, I just really need help with this, it feels like blah, 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 blah. And then you can say, okay, this person used a lot of metaphors. They're probably a visual thinker. It would be a good guess anyway. Worst case scenario, they just like metaphors and you gave them some. So another is if they keep saying, I don't know why I haven't gotten this yet, or something like that, like, I should get this by now, then that might be an indicator that you want to use some push pin visuals. So like if you're chatting in, let's say you have an app where you do messaging with them and they have a breakthrough, or they say something that you know is important for them as a coach, you can put a GIF, an animated GIF right below it in your answer. So when you would normally say like, oh, I love that insight, or I love what you said there, you can put an animated GIF that matches what their insight was. I know as an example, I had a coach where I was saying like, I don't think they're going to like me doing things differently. And she was like, no, you do things differently. Not everybody's going to like everything that you do. So just let yourself be yourself. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just, for some reason that just clicked. I never even thought about how hard I was trying to impress other people. And then she put this little GIF of like, I forgot his name, but this actor running in a little blue suit that says, let your freak flag fly. That's so hard to say. And now that visual is in my head every time I catch myself trying to impress people who don't get what I'm doing. I'm like, it's fine. I'll let my freak flag fly. And it's like a really funny GIF. And that is good, like an example of a good push pin to help people have that visual. It's a humorous one. You can also use, ones that are just a good representation, like an example. So that would be my last example of a visual, is if you can say, go check out this social profile, or look at what this leader is doing. And that comes back to representation, which I think is one of the most important things for us now as humans are healing physically from the pandemic and also in relationship with each other. If we have representation of the kind of life we are trying to live and our mission, and people being successful at it, it encourages us to try and take care of other people. So the more representation we have of what's possible, the more we can create the world we want to live in. And so being able to show representation to people of what they're going for is another powerful visual, especially for people who feel so different in your coaching program.
The last thing that you talked there about with representation reminded me of some of your recent articles. One being about visuals and how you can use them for more inclusion, but then also the history of visuals and how they have been used in oppression of people. Would you talk a little bit about first how in history it's been used to oppress people, and then oppress people, and then how we can change using visuals?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, I could talk about that for hours, but so art has a lot of power, and I think people have always known that, which is why they either berate it and try to kick it out of schools and say it's not that important, it's just an extracurricular, or they try to make it only this kind of art is art and your art is not, and or only kids do art or something. If something keeps trying to be boxed like that, you can tell it's powerful. That's usually an indicator for me. So, and it has power because it can connect people and it can rally people up emotionally. Because when we see something, it's more than just what it's a picture of. Like if we see a picture of a mermaid, all the different ways you could show a mermaid would bring up different feelings. There's, Ariel. Now you're feeling like when you were a child watching that movie, if you grew up watching it. Maybe it's the new Ariel in the movie with black skin and dreadlocks in the water, and that might bring up a different feeling. If you're a young black girl, you're feeling, whoa, that's me. You feel inspired. If you're someone who does not like seeing anything different than what you're used to, and you're not used to that sort of tension of, that's not me being the hero, I want to be the hero, then that's going to feel uncomfortable. And so that kind of discomfort can be easily made by creating things that look, I guess I'm very light on the use of the word ugly, but you can in art make things look ugly by just exaggerating them and making them look like they're having those emotions that are harder for us to handle, that make us feel like we're going to be separated from the group, like anger and disgust and grief, that kind of bring up emotions of and we have to ground ourselves. You can put that in art by making things look really scary and big and looming and kind of even making them fall apart or something. And so in propaganda and in political campaigns and in books, they can make like witches look horrible by turning their skin green and giving them super pointy noses to try to dismiss the power of whatever a witch would have done in the past, because we know that they were suppressed, and art helped that by putting it in the children's books and things like that. Same with propaganda, making the enemy look like a big scary monster when they're human. The main thing is that if art is used to dehumanize people by making them look like an animal or making them look like a spectacle, or any other kind of non-human thing, that is going to cause discord and going to cause people to split into a us and them mentality, because you're saying, well, I am a human because you are in your body, you're human, but then you feel like that thing is not human. And the more that people see a race or a gender or a kind of person portrayed as not human, the more they start to think it. And so it's caused wars. It's caused people to think that one race is superior to another, because in art, you can make things look different than how they would if you were friends with that person. So art is powerful in that way. And also it can make things look different than what it is now. So you can also use art to create the future. And a lot of artists have done that during the pandemic and in the 2020 uprising. They used art to show how you can offer self-care. They used it to increase representation of Black voices and speakers, and people who might not have seen or heard from them. We're seeing them all over social media. And they also used representation to show what something could look like that people might not see very often. Or might not be able to imagine for themselves. And that's the wonderful thing about kaleidoscopic thinkers, is we can imagine things that don't exist yet. And it's, I think, our job when we have the capacity to, in little ways, show people what that might look like. At least I take that responsibility in my art to be able to say, this is what this can look like. And that's really why I do vision mapping. It's like, this is what your idea could look like. This is how you can go achieve it. Because sometimes if people can't see it, they don't think it's going to exist. There's this really lovely TV show. I know Questlove, and I forgot the name of the other person, but I can let you know for the show notes. But they talk, there's like a whole song about creating the world you want to see, and all the kids are doing artwork and stuff. It's on Disney Plus. And I can't believe the name escaped me, but I'll tell you and you can put it in the show notes. And it's like a 10-minute show, and it's so beautiful representation of how art can be used for good to like paint the narrative of like what we're going for as we evolve and learn about each other.
I think As you were talking, I'm remembering the first time it dawned on me, and of course, somebody had to point this out to me, that a lot of the Disney movies from my childhood, the villains, if they were from a different ethnicity than European white, their facial features that were more ethnic, quote unquote, were exaggerated on the
Mhm.
villains. And then the heroes always had facial features that were much more Western looking,
Mhm.
regardless of if they were from, the Middle East or from Asia. And it was a hidden thing. Like I just absorbed that throughout my childhood, not
Mhm.
even noticing it until somebody pointed it out in I probably an online article, and it was like, wow, I have absorbed that message throughout my entire life, and until
Mhm.
somebody else pointed it out to me, I probably would have just kept on absorbing it because it was so normalized for me.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's something that we can, once we're aware of it, we can point it out to our children or to the people in our community or our clients like this. When you show a clip of something or you're showing a story, you can point out, like, oh, notice how they've done this, or how, like, why would they have chosen this as the hero? If they're having that conversation about that will help them become aware of what they're seeing also in other places. But yeah, Disney had a lot of repair that they needed to do and that they're still doing. I think that they're doing pretty well. I'm just holding on to it because I love them so much. Um, and I think that when it comes to like canceling and everything, I'm like, if they're actively trying, then we just hold them accountable to keep trying, because we all need that space to be able to make a mistake and try again and be held accountable. And obviously, if there's no remorse and you don't care, then that person is going to harm you. You have to keep yourself safe, don't, be around them. But yeah, I like where Disney's going. If I was going to give my little review of how they're trying to repair damages. And I know it can look scary for people who aren't used to it and feel like things are being taken over, but it has to be done because it was taken over to start. You have to even it out. Now it's just going to feel different to get to that spot where everyone can find themselves and see themselves. Disney movies are so important for kids. So I'm glad that the representation is increasing.
We Before we would go visit Disney World or Disneyland, we would have Disney viewing weekends. And
Mm-hmm.
we started way back at Snow White, and every weekend would watch a different Disney movie. And I just remember being like, "Oh, these are teaching moments right here." Wow, there was some stuff I was learning as a kid that needed to be corrected. But yes, so
Right.
yeah, I love Disney, and I'm glad they're making repairs along the way. And I think this
Mm-hmm.
also is a point where having input from people from lots of different backgrounds is helpful because you may not catch something because it's not part of your experience.
Mm-hmm. And the details matter a lot in art, I also have found. Like in Encanto, which was one of their recent movies, they brought in somebody to even like check the fabric on the people who in each of the families to make sure it makes sense with each of the characters so people really see themselves, because it doesn't count. I know in the illustration industry, we have a big thing about like you can't just take a white kid and then turn their skin black in the illustration. That's not the same. They won't see themselves there. So there's a lot of like, you have to relearn. I mean, hairstylists, even when they're doing movies, like you have to learn how to draw the hair so it actually looks authentic. So people actually see themselves and they believe that you see them. You didn't just pretend like they existed. You actually looked at them and studied them and learned to draw them. And that has an impact. And I think it's a good practice anyway, of observation and getting to know and get used to things that you don't see every day, but you want to. Like, we want this world to be more kaleidoscopic, I think, especially kaleidoscopic thinkers do. We want to see everybody contributing because we know diversity is important because our brain just already acts in diversity. And I think it can be a challenge sometimes to slow down and let other people catch up with that idea. But I think that they will when we're patient and we're visually sharing what we hope to see.
What is one thing that we haven't touched on yet during this conversation that you would really like to make sure the audience is aware of?
Whenever I get these questions, I always just say I want everyone to know that their ideas matter and that they're not broken. I was like, if I could sit on the corner and say over and over again to my community and the people who end up in my community, that's what they need to hear, because we all like deep down are worried that we're too broken or that our ideas are silly because because they're not anywhere else. We're like, well, if no one else is doing this, we want the validation, but I'll just pre-validate you, because I think another thing I love to talk about is baby ideas. Like there's no bad ideas. They're just really infant ideas that just might not be able to go out fully into the world yet until you've refined them and like thought through all the angles and tested it with someone else or something like that. So all of your baby ideas are valid, and you can let them grow and see which ones you want to continue on with and which ones were good for the time being. Yeah, those are the sentiments I'd like to leave.
I like that idea of the baby ideas, that there's, it's like when we're learning to grow our business or we're learning a new skill, we have to remind ourselves, when we were learning how to walk, we didn't like fall down and be like, well, I guess I'm not good at that. I'm never going to do that again.
Right. Yeah. I know. I love that trending reel right now that has people saying some complaint they have, and then their younger selves like, wait, what? You have a business? Wait, what? You have a house? Whoa, look at you. You're like, oh
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
I am doing pretty good.
That makes me think of every time I would go to the ATM with my son when he was like 6 years old and I would deposit like $100. He'd be like, oh my God, we're rich. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, if only.
I know, right? I love getting back in that childlike state of just appreciating everything for what it is,
Yeah.
you know?
Just finding joy in absolutely everything, which is
Mhm.
something I want to real quick touch on. Was one of your assignments in an article you had was to create a Pinterest board of all these images that either made you happy or joyful or just created positive emotions for you, and then to take a look at that board every single day, which I absolutely loved
Mhm.
doing, and was really surprised at the things that I added to my board. Why did you create that assignment, and what kind of tips would you give for people on that?
That is an assignment from way back in when my business was a baby. And I had a a shop called The Littlest Guide Shop where I made little hand illustrated guides for moms to do with their babies. So it was either self-care things or black and white photos for their babies to look at. Um, and and it came from me feeling depressed after the birth of my second child and feeling like totally broken as a mom, like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And so I just started trying to pick small things that I liked. And at the time, Pinterest was a huge deal when they were babies. And so I was always kind of scrolling Pinterest while they were sleeping on me. And I like couldn't get up in the middle of the night. And so I just started adding some of my cutesy favorite things, and it instantly was making me feel happy. So I put it in a blog post way back then, and then took it down when I switched my business around a few different times. And then when this article happened, I was like, you know what? This would be a good place to reinstitute this board. And I think that it can be done on Pinterest. Like you can collect images of things that make you happy on Pinterest or up on the wall, or just make a booklet of it. My youngest likes to take those composition books and to like tape or glue a picture on each page, kind of like your own coffee table book. So that works too, or just sticking them in your agenda. I also tell coaches to sprinkle it throughout their program, just things that fit the vibe of your business and that would just make your clients happy, because I think people want to feel happy, and it's a goal of a lot of people. And then if they can feel that feeling with you, then it helps build that trust. And it also just makes it more fun to coach if you know that you're sprinkling in little bits of joy and delight. So yeah, I would just recommend you can start small if that kind of task feels overwhelming, but it usually just snowballs. Like you start finding a few things that you like, and then all of a sudden you're remembering things and adding to it. So
I have a client who is a coach, and she sent out an email a couple months back that she just included a series of GIFs of a cat that just had some attitude. And it was basically like when I tell my clients they have to feel their feelings. And it was this cat just like giving you the side eye. And I got that email and I was rolling literally on the floor. And I
Yeah.
had to Voxer her immediately and say, this is the most perfect thing. And so when you're talking about that, about just including some images,
Mhm.
that just right there created so much of an impact. I
Mhm.
almost didn't even need to read the rest of the text because I knew
Right.
exactly what she was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a client who she does breath work, and she used, I think I posted on Instagram, you saw, but she had this picture of this little kitty just spread out on the bed with its little belly going up and down, breathing, and it like looked so relaxed. And she's been great at using visuals too for all of her just trying to show what breath is, like thinking about breath more because people take it for granted. And those, every time she posts those little breathing animals, it makes me smile.
So I have one more question for you. And my business is all about taking the hustle out of your business. Is
Mhm.
there a way that you have taken the hustle out of your business?
Yes, the main way is not caring about what other people are going to judge me for, and realizing that the judgment will be there and that it doesn't matter to me because I have my eye on what I want. So what I've taken the hustle out by keeping the big picture in mind, and I have regular CEO sessions where I sit with myself and look at my. I of course have like a mood board, and under each picture is like why that matters to me. And so I'll just revisit it if I'm starting to feel stressed. I'll drink a little bit of extra water. I actually have, I know this is not visual, but I have these visual cards that I have pictures. One says drink water and then quiet candle time, tidy up your space. And so I just painted a little picture on each card. And so if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll do one of those cards and then I will see what I can cut that doesn't match that overarching idea. So I just cut a lot of stuff. That's how I remove the hustle, or I'll tell people like it's not done yet. But because Beyonce does that, she's like, the album's not done, so you can wait. And I'm like, if Beyonce can do that with however many followers she has, then I can be like, I need to take a shower. I'm going to be a little late, or this blog article is coming out tomorrow. So I just let it flow to where it needs to
There,
be.
there is a saying we all need to, if Beyonce gets to do it, so do
Yeah,
we.
I know. I was like, well, like she doesn't do any interviews. She's just with her family on Sundays. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to embody that right now and be like, I'm not doing work right now. So it is hard to rest. I mean, that's why I have all of these things that I have to enact because it's hard for me to sit still.
Where can the audience find you?
It's pretty much illustrative.us. So that's the website, that's the Instagram, the LinkedIn, and all of that stuff. But I love to hang out on Instagram. So that's at illustrative.us. And I love sending people to the library on illustrative.us on my website. It has tons of articles, which you've referenced in this interview, and it's going to have the quiz that you tested for me. That's going to be live on there soon. So there's just all sorts of fun little games and articles and interviews on there. And I always send people that way. So yeah, it was lovely chatting with everybody today and with you.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And that's it for today's episode. Please be sure to share it and leave a review. For show notes and transcripts, visit jackiehayes.me. While you're there, be sure to subscribe to my email list. You'll receive weekly launch strategy tips straight to your inbox, plus access to my launch strategy resource library. Thanks for joining. Until next time, keep on learning.